Hey, so today I want to use the new ChatGPT O to prepare for the IELTS speaking test. Let's see how it goes. Hey,
Oh, hey there. How's it going?
so today I want to prepare for my IELTS speaking test, and I want you to give me a prompt which I can speak on, and then I want you to evaluate my response.
Sure, I'd be happy to help with that. Here's a prompt for you. Describe a memorable trip you have taken. You should say 1. Where you went, 2. Who you went with, 3. What you did there, or why it was memorable. Take a few moments to think about it, then go ahead and give your response. I'll be here to listen and evaluate it.
Sure. So I want to talk
Great.
about
Whenever you're ready, go ahead and start your response.
I want to talk about my recent trip to Grand Canyon. So recently I live in Phoenix. Since I live in Phoenix, my cousin also lives here. My cousin suggested to go to Grand Canyon, and I rented a car from an app called Turo. It was, I think, $30 a day, and we obviously rented that car, and I drove from Phoenix to all the way to Grand Canyon.
Nice start. You're off to a good beginning. Now, can you tell me more about what you did at the Grand Canyon and why this trip was memorable for you?
Right, so mostly it was memorable because I got to drive in United States for the first time ever. So the most memorable part was just the drive.
That sounds like a thrilling experience. Driving in a new country for the first time can definitely make a trip memorable. Keep going and tell me more about your experience at the Grand Canyon itself and any special moments you had there.
Right, so we went through a place called Flagstaff, which had a lot of snow. So that was really amazing. Also, just the views from Grand Canyon were breathtaking. There was, of course, the river that goes from there, the Colorado River. And although I think since I have been to Himalayas, it was kind of underwhelming, but still
It sounds
really
like
good.
you had quite the adventure, especially encountering snow in Flagstaff and witnessing the awe-inspiring views of the Grand Canyon. Can you elaborate on how these experiences compare to your previous travels to the Himalayas?
Right, so as I said that in Himalayas the views, of course, there are great depths in both the places. Basically, rivers are flowing from underneath, and you can look upon the river.
It's fascinating to hear how you found similarities in the great depths and flowing rivers between the Himalayas and the Grand Canyon. Did you find any differences or unique aspects between the two locations?
Can you repeat that?
Of course, I was asking if you noticed any differences or unique aspects between the Himalayas and the Grand Canyon during your trip.
Of course. So the two places have very different geographies, of course. The Grand Canyon has kind of plate-like structure, right? Because of the sedimentation and sedimentation over thousands of years, while Himalayas are different. They are like huge mountains, and they are really really big in comparison to Grand Canyon, and they're much, of course, they're very diverse in comparison to Grand Canyon. Grand Canyon is just all similar, while Himalayas have a lot of variety. If you go from Kashmir to Himachal to Uttarakhand to Nepal to Sikkim to Bhutan, every place is kind of have their own geography.
That's a great observation. The distinct geological formations and diverse landscapes of both the Grand Canyon and the Himalayas definitely set them apart. of each location.
Right.
Is there anything else you'd
Can
like
you
to share
stop
about
here
your memorable
and
trip to the Grand Canyon?
can we stop here and can you evaluate my response now? Suppose it was IELTS speaking test. What were the good things about it?
Sure.
What were the problems?
Overall, your response was clear and well structured. You effectively addressed the prompt by describing your recent trip to the Grand Canyon, including where you went, who you went with, what you did there, and why it was memorable. You provided specific details, such as renting a car from Turo and encountering snow in Flagstaff, which added depth to your story. Additionally, you made a thoughtful comparison between the Grand Canyon and the Himalayas, highlighting their distinct geographies. Your speech was generally fluent, although there were a few instances of hesitation. Overall, it was a strong response that effectively showcased your ability to speak about a memorable experience. Great job.
What do you think? What band would I get for this response?
Based on your response, you demonstrated a good command of English and addressed the prompt comprehensively. Your description was clear and included relevant details, and you effectively expressed your thoughts. However, there were some instances of hesitation, which may slightly impact your fluency score. Overall, I would estimate your response to be in the range of 7 to 7.5 for the IELTS speaking test.
All right. Now, I want you to change the prompt. I would give you an example of the kind of prompt I would want you to give me. Once I saw a question where IELTS prompt was that describe an instance where you did some charity work. So just give me a similar prompt where the response is not so easy to think about, but still a different one.
Got it. Here's a prompt for you. Describe a time when you faced a significant cultural misunderstanding or miscommunication. You should say 1. Where and when it occurred. 2. Who was involved. 3. What led to the misunderstanding or miscommunication. 4. How you resolved the situation or what you learned from it. Take a moment to think about your response, and whenever you're ready, feel free to start sharing your story.
Alright, this is gonna be embarrassing, but once I visited San Francisco, it was my first time ever out of India, and I stayed at a hostel in San Francisco. I was sitting in the basement when I met a couple. It was an Indian guy and a white girl. So I was talking to them, and we really liked each other, all of us, basically me and them, and we were really talking. And I talked for some time.
It's okay. Sharing experiences like these can be insightful for both you and others. Please continue with your story.
Right, so I was talking to them, we talked for some time, and then they left. Now, I did not realize literally anything what happened, but
It seems like there might have been a pause. Could you please continue with your story?
so I received a text from the guy. Basically, we exchanged our Twitter accounts, but I received a text from the guy that, bro, what the fuck did you say to my boyfriend? And I just couldn't understand what did I say. And he said you asked for her room number, and I just didn't understand how this was offensive to somebody, because I was staying at the hostel and it was a dorm, right? I was staying in a dorm, but probably I realized way later that
It sounds like you encountered a misunderstanding that stemmed from cultural differences. Can you share more about how you navigated the situation or what you learned from it?
I mean, I literally couldn't do anything. I mean, they blocked me on Twitter and they just left. But it's like one of those instances of Me Too, I think, where I really didn't even understand what I did, but somebody else was offended by something I did. But I realized that you gotta be really careful while talking to people.
It sounds like a challenging experience. Cultural differences and misunderstandings can indeed lead to uncomfortable situations. Reflecting on the incident and being mindful of cultural sensitivities in future interactions is a valuable lesson. Is there anything else you'd like to share about how you handled the situation or what you learned from it?
I tried to convince them that I did not really mean anything, uh, but they were not convinced, I think, and they just left and we didn't really talk ever again. And yes,
It's
now
unfortunate that your
stop.
attempts to clarify weren't successful, but sometimes misunderstandings can be difficult to resolve. It seems like you did your best to explain your intentions. Thank you for sharing your story. If there's anything else you'd like to discuss or any other experiences
Just
you'd
tell
like to
me
share, feel
what.
free to let me know.
Just tell me what would be, how was my response and what would be my score in IELTS if this was the answer to my speaking test.
Your response effectively addressed the prompt by describing a significant cultural misunderstanding you experienced. You provided details about where and when it occurred, who was involved, and what led to the misunderstanding. Additionally, you shared your thoughts on the situation and reflected on what you learned from it. However, there were some pauses and hesitations in your speech, which may affect your fluency score slightly. Overall, I would estimate your response to be in the range of 6.5 to 7 for the IELTS speaking test.
Right. Do you have any other prompt that you can give me?
Certainly. Here's another prompt for you. Describe a time when you had to make a difficult decision. You should say 1. What the decision was, 2.
Okay.
Why it was difficult, 3. How you made the decision, 4. What the outcome was. Take some time to think about your response, and whenever you're ready, feel free to share your story.
Right. So, I want to share a story about my time in college, my bachelor's basically. I was in first year of my bachelor's, and I was studying in a college called NIT Srinagar. Now, in my first year of college, something crazy happened. Basically, a flood happened. Kashmir Valley was flooded.
It sounds like an intriguing story. Please continue with your experience from your first year of college at NIT Srinagar.
So yeah, the Kashmir Valley was flooded, and now the water, like it rained continuously for 10 days and the water levels were increasing day by day, and we had to evacuate the college eventually, and we were shifted to a nearby Kashmir University. It was a terrible time. Terrible and fun time. We had to sleep on the floors. We have to sleep in makeshift beds, and eventually.
That sounds like a challenging situation to navigate. Can you share more about the difficult decision you had to make during this
Right.
time?
So eventually we were like a group of 20 or 30 friends, but we were at Kashmir University. Now, at that point, the group split in two. Some people wanted to stay there and wait for the government assistance. And some
It
people.
seems like there was a division within your group regarding whether to stay at Kashmir University or to seek alternative accommodations. What factors
Yeah.
influenced your decision?
So I would tell you about the alternative. The alternative was to leave Kashmir University and go to Ladakh, to Leh, because it's at a higher level. The roads were open, while the lower levels it was all flooded. So the two options were either we stay at Kashmir University and wait for the government assistance, or we move to the higher Ladakh region. Now the group was split in two, and there were two leaders of each group, a guy named Sarthak and a guy named, I mean, let's forget about the.
It sounds like a difficult decision between staying at Kashmir University or moving to the higher region of Ladakh for safety. Can you continue with how you navigated this decision-making process within your group?
Now, basically, it was like a flood, yeah, but I am an adventurist and I didn't really wanted to stay at that place. I wanted to do something different, so I decided to move to Ladakh, uh, to go to Ladakh, and yeah, I decided to join that group, and it really turned out to be an awesome adventure to go from Srinagar to Ladakh. It was a 14-hour journey, and the views were incredible, they were breathtaking, and we finally reached Ladakh. We stayed at a Buddhist monastery, and the weather there was amazing, the sceneries were amazing, and yeah, that's how story ends.
It sounds like you made a bold decision to join the group heading to Ladakh, and it turned out to be an unforgettable adventure. Your description of the journey and the scenery in Ladakh paints a vivid picture. Thank you for sharing your experience. If there's anything else you'd like to discuss or any other stories you'd like to share, feel free to let me know.
Just now tell me how was my response and what would be the score.
Your response effectively addressed the prompt by describing a difficult decision you had to make during a challenging situation. You provided details about the circumstances, the options available to you, and the decision-making process within your group. Additionally, you shared the outcome of your decision and described the adventure of traveling to Ladakh. However, there were some pauses and hesitations in your speech, which may slightly affect your fluency score. Overall, I would estimate your response to be in the range of 6.5 to 7 for the IELTS speaking test.
All right, so this was the IELTS speaking test preparation. This is how you would do it, I guess, if you want to prepare for IELTS. Thank you.